Hi Duncan, thanks a lot for joining me. Today we'll talk about infant formula and the recent turmoil that's been going on. And I know by reading your research that this is a 51 billion industry, quite big, and it's dominated mainly by 5 players. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about what you think, the implications for the companies that you cover, etc.
Yes, well, it's as you might say, $51 billion market, and it tends to be actually, if you go individually, sort of oligopolies with 2 global players in the market and then a strong local player. So all we know is that Nestlé on December the 9th found an issue with an ingredient. They then told the Dutch authorities. They then pulled the stock, did a silent recall, stopped it from going out. I think 3 days later, then when the Italians put it on a global alert system to say that there was an issue. What I'm not 100% sure of is why nothing then happened until January the 5th. It could be that everybody was checking whether they had that batch number from the ingredient company. But I think there were quite a few silent recalls done. But it was the Austrian and the German authorities that then called for a proper product recall. But they did say that Nestlé had done everything that they should have done under the rules. And then after that, I think it was the 17th of January that Danone were told by the Singaporean authorities to pull a product which the European markets got to know about on the 20th because it was the weekend. And then Lactalis the day after then also pulled some product. But I think I'm assuming it was from that RAS, Rapid Alert System, from December the 12th. So I really am not sure what happened in between. But it is a bit odd that we had that 3-week period where seem to be dark in terms of media coverage compared to what we've had subsequently.
And then the links with Cabio Biotech started at the beginning of January, and then it sort of...
Yes, it seemed to be somewhere between the 5th and the 17th that it became known that it was from a Chinese manufacturer, and then we use the SPLC function then to find who actually was using them as an ingredient supplier and who they supplied in the industry as well. So it took a bit of digging around before we got there, but we found it. The Chinese authorities have indicated that the Chinese company should do some testing as well, because it seems that the ingredient has come from a Chinese company, which is your speciality. So I think you should explain what's happened there as well.
It has also implications for, as you said, for ingredient companies, because it's widely reported in news outlets that there's a link between a Chinese ARA maker and the contamination of the baby formula products. So what's happening right now is just this massive turmoil within also the ingredients industry, and it is a very small pocket within the whole sector. Arachidonic or acid oil, but it still has relevant implications mainly for a company that we cover, that's DSM Firmenich. They are the main producer. They dominated this market for about 20 years or more, and this Chinese competition has constantly been increasing their market share. So they've sort of been pushing a little bit higher with better quality, and also getting some clients, like very big profile clients like Nestlé and Danone, to a degree. So what we're seeing now is there are 2 things. One is the short term, which is of course how are Nestlé, Danone, Lactalis is going to adapt. Maybe some volumes go back to DSM, but in the long term there is this trend of more local ingredients production for flavor, fragrances, and some specialty ingredients in China. So Western counterparts like Givaudan, like DSM, are struggling against them. And everything that puts a stop to that trend is somehow positive. If, of course, safety, traceability, and supply security comes back as one of the main issues, which is normally price and quality.
Well, undoubtedly, if for baby food or infant formula, which is the problem, safety is absolutely paramount. So there's no doubt that Nestlé, Danone, everyone in the industry, they don't have to it's not a mandatory ingredient, this ARA oil, but it does help brain development, visual acuity apparently, so it is recommended. But the problem is the regulation of it was pretty lax, it feels like, because the levels of contaminant was quite high, or higher than it possibly should have been. And so Nestlé and Danone are now following the European regulatory rules, which is a almost untraceable amount of this contaminant, this cerulite. But we have two rather interesting things going on in that the French regulators, or the French Health Ministry, is looking at 3 potential death cases now from baby food. We have no idea whether there's a causal link, but obviously that just keeps it in the headlines. And it said yesterday that it's 3 rather than 2 deaths. And you've also got a company called Foodwatch, or a regulator called Foodwatch in Holland, who's put a Contra X investigation in with the Paris court. Now that means it could expand to the regulators as well, so we're not quite sure where that's going to go, but it does seem more that the levels of contaminant were relatively high before this problem became known. So it looks like the food companies have done exactly everything they should do. They've done the silent recall, they've got it off the shelves, they've done what they should, but it feels that the contaminant level just was not at the right level. So unfortunately, it does feel that this is an issue that will still be in the press for a little while. In terms of financial impact, very small as it sits today, but what we don't know is whether parents will switch to other brands because they feel that the brand they're using is tainted. So it's a moving situation, but at this moment the financial impact feels very, very low. Unfortunately, reputation has been harmed because it's just been almost 6 weeks now where this thing has been going on. So we would hope it would finish fairly soon, but I have no idea.
And overall, you think that the financial impact sort of mitigated because these companies are on top of the issue?
Should be. I mean, certainly the share price impact. I just, as of 12 o'clock anyway today, Nestlé was up about 2%. Actual, but down something like 4% against the SX3P, the Consumer Stocks Index, whereas Danone was down about 6%, which, looking at what I know from the recalls, you would think Nestlé would have a bigger impact because it's on about 60 markets versus about 10 or 12. So, but it's the reputation risk that Nestlé pulled it and got it off and initiated the whole of the recall really for the whole sector, whereas Danone were told to, and I think that's probably spooked a few people. And also Danone baby food is 22% of the sales, where it's under 10 for Nestlé. So in terms of the impact of the whole group, it's bigger for Danone, and I think that's why those shares have been probably more affected by this issue than Nestlé at this current moment.
What seems pretty clear is that news are going to dominate the price narrative in the short term, right? I mean, everything that happens right now with this issue is going to either trigger up or down.
Thank you very
price
much.
movements.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. Yeah.
I mean, Danone went up, about 3% just on the fact that the Chinese companies were the ones being impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for the ingredients industry, it seems like there are so many other things moving share prices. I don't think it's going to be a major. It's just something that's going to be there, but it's not going to play a major role, at least in the short term when it comes to share price performance, because there are just so many other things. There's a lot going on, other dynamics playing out.
But at least Nestlé and Danone have their results next week, so I'm hoping they can sort of put a cap on things and explain exactly what the financial impact could be in the short term. Obviously, we don't know about consumers trading around, but I think if they do that, it should hopefully stabilise the share price, and they can say, we've done what we have to do, and there should be no more recalls, no more headlines that can affect us apart from the regulatory ones, which is definitely not in their control.
Well, thank you for joining me, Duncan. This was very insightful. And if you want to check more of our research, always go to BIGO. And particularly if you want to check consumer staples and food consumer staples in Europe, BI Foodie. And for this research, we've used quite a lot SPLC, which is the supply chain monitor.
Exactly.
Where we can see...
is actually quite a good function now, in that it does go quite deep into, certainly trying to find a small chemical from Nestlé, you could find it by that function.
Exactly. And all of our research in BIGO. Thank you.
Thank you very much.